Can't see. It's recording. Hello. I'm glad to introduce Ldn Analytics, our software tools to help countries track their progress towards land degradation neutrality, together with Luis Costa, a remote sensing expert, and Simon Reynolds, a full-stack software developer, and myself, Vanya Westerberg, an environmental economist. Well, land degradation is arguably the biggest challenge of our century. But at the same time, by addressing it, we have our responses to basically feeding an ever-growing population, halting species loss, combating climate change, and unlocking rural growth. But at the same time, we also know agriculture, forestry, and other land use remains hugely underfunded with respect to combating climate change. Only 3% of funding goes to the land use sector. And this most likely comes from a general lack of understanding that healthy soils hold the answers to our most imminent challenges. And one of the problems is most likely that we've not been good at tracking the quantity and quality of our soils, and we just don't have sufficient metrics and tools to be able to measure even the impact of the interventions that we're doing on land use. These are the reasons why we as a team were motivated, even before the competition was announced, to develop these practical tools and enhance analytical capacities around understanding how to combat land degradation. So we developed this tool using state-of-the-art satellite geometry, Earth observation, and global data. And I'm now pleased to provide you a demo. The tool has been developed as well with a view to serving different user groups, land planners, civil society organizations, farmers, and even private companies from local to subnational and up to national level, with a view notably to helping countries achieve their land degradation neutral target, all the meanwhile being embedded in a larger land use planning systems that allows for the planners and the decision makers to make and understand the trade-offs involved in their land use interventions. So now let's show you a case with respect to one of our consortium members, Partenariat du Développement Local, an NGO in Haiti working to implement sustainable land management practices. Now, so Assume PDL is interested first and foremost in understanding what's happened over the last 10 years with regards to land degradation. So then they put the time horizon, and we can then see the country and the different arrondissements within Haiti, and colors of yellow, orange in this direction, showing that degradation has happened. When colors are greener, it means that there has been an increase in productivity. Now, in Haiti, PDL works in the region, for example, of San Rafael. So we click on this region, and what we first and foremost can see is that for Haiti as a whole, between 2009 and 2019, the amount of land that is degraded over the total land area has increased by 11%. Land degradation is measured using the one-out, all-out approach, such that if any of these indicators of land degradation, productivity, net primary productivity, soil organic carbon, land cover, it has a negative transition, then it's considered statistically significant. Negative, then it's considered that degradation is happening. And so with respect to San Rafael itself, we see, first and foremost, we can look at what kind of land use transitions has happened over this time period. Croplands has expanded, grasslands has expanded, but forest cover has declined over that period. We can also see that the actual transitions and see that for the most part, tree cover, forest cover has been lost to cropland expansion, but also somewhat to grassland expansion. Now, PDL maybe wants to understand further what is happening at in the areas where it's having some interventions. So then we can go in and interact with these layers and see, okay, where's there been a decline in productivity? And we've got this, of course, for the whole of the country. We got it for the whole of the world. And anything that is sort of red tonality means that we have a decline in land use productivity. Okay, not good, not good. Specifically around those areas, you see here, up where PDL is operating. So it justifies that PDL is working here around Bouquet d'Homme, Jacksonville, and Pignon. Now, then one may ask, or PDL may ask, what's explaining some of that degradation in productivity? Is it maybe related to the fact that there's significant erosion risk? Well, let's look at the terrain. Okay, indeed, there's some hillsides here. This may explain why there's maybe more loss of land productivity. But is there any significant erosion risk? We click there. And not as such in our study zone, but if we zoom out, we can indeed see areas that are popping up. You can see red. These are areas with erosion risk. These are areas where there's an important case for intervening in that landscape. But as PDL has also helped work with farmers to diversify their income sources, notably through agroforestry interventions, PDL is also interested to see if they can actually, if there's been any changes in land cover within those areas that they have worked. And so we unclip the productivity layer, and yes, as expected, around Bouquet d'Homme, we have some improvements in land cover related to increases in tree cover. So that's great to see. I should mention here in passing that right now we cannot see exactly what land cover transition that is happening, but this is something we're going to add to the tool. We're also going to allow the tool user to go in and amend whether they consider a given land use transition, for example, from cropland to grassland, as a positive or negative change. But these are further future developments. Now, PDL may ask itself, where is it then going to prioritize future interventions? And it can look at the current drought risk, and those areas that have drought risks are, where farmers will be more exposed. And we can see, I mean, this is at a quite aggregate level, but indeed, to the west, in the western part of the tile is darker, the drought risk is higher. So there may be a case specifically for targeting some of the restoration interventions in these areas where the drought risk is higher. We can also improve on this color scheme later. But what we also want to do as an NGO is to ensure that if we're starting to regenerate tree cover, that it's not burned down from one day to the other. So we also look at if there's any fire hazards. And we can see here that okay, this is definitely one area where there's fire hazards, so we want to be careful, or we want to go do some sensibilization around fire if we are to start introducing our restoration interventions there, and likewise in Bouquet d'Homme, where we already are working. Okay, and with that quick demonstration of how land users and land planners can use our tool at the subnational level, I'm glad to show you now what notably Partenariat de Développement Local is saying about the tool.
First of all, I think it's a very interesting tool, and with very easy to interact with in terms of the user interface. Very easy to start working. And I think it can be a very useful tool for the work that we are doing mostly in this micro region where we are trying to reverse the trend in terms of land degradation and soil regeneration. I think one of the first use it can be done, it can be useful for us in terms of identifying areas that are most affected or that are at higher risk of being affected by some of the indicators of land degradation, like land cover, soil productivity, and erosions. in order to better target our activities and our priorities for actions. And the aspect is that I think it can help us also assess the progress and the impact of our work in the past in the past years, and also as we move along in our work in these regions. It can help us assess the impact and how we are transitioning in terms of land regeneration and soil stability and also regeneration, by allowing us to clearly see and compare some of these key indicators. And also, I think I mentioned that before, it can be also a very good tools to demonstrate to local, regional, and national decision makers that agroecological farming, that the techniques and the practice that we are promoting can be really important and can contribute to land degradation neutrality and disaster risk resilience, by being able to showcase with clear examples how some of the indicators have changed with the impact of our work. And also, I think that can be eventually used to support policy support and finance for the work that we are doing in these areas. And also, as I said, in terms of how I believe that we can really use this kind of tool in our work, daily or yearly. First of all, in the planning of our work, in prioritization of our annual plan, where we can see, okay, this is one of the areas that we need to focus more efforts, being compared to other areas that where we are working. And on the other hand, in terms of monitoring and evaluation, in terms of improvement for further development, I think one of the important aspects I would like to see is that we use a higher resolution in terms of using a municipality as a unit of measure, because I can see now it's at arrondissement, which covers several communes at the same time. It would be great for us to see, like, we are working in Saint-Michel, we can take Saint-Michel separately and analyze our progress in this area, and take Saint-Raphael itself or Maubeuge itself, and see how we are progressing in these areas. And I also think it would be good also to have it in our local language, because even if I can speak English, but not every user at the organization can do this in English. So it would be good to have it in French or in Haitian Creole in order to be really able to work with that. And the last aspect I think I would mention in terms of priorities is being able to export these images with the graphics that we can see in order to use them in the reporting, in reports, and in our reports to donors or to policymakers. Thank you.
With that, I'll give the word to Simon, who will look at tell us a little bit more about scenario planning and how the tool can be used at the national level.
Thank you, Vanya. So here we've moved to Ghana, and we're going to look at some of their LDN targets and how they can be integrated into the scenario planning aspect of our tool. And so one of the top LDN targets that Ghana has is to reforest over 800 kilometers squared of converted forest. Now, within the tool, we have the ability to create scenarios. So you can come down here to the bottom and click on the create scenario. We pick the scenario starting point, so we'll start with the data that's already there. And for this one, we're going to call it LDN1. We'll click create. And what this has done is created a new set of data for this scenario, based upon the data that we already had for the year of 2019 in this case. And what we can see down here is a table of the various trade-offs and summary values, which I'll talk about a bit more in a minute. But first of all, how can we enter this information of the 800 kilometers squared of converted forest? We can come down here and edit the scenario, and come up and see that here the tree cover has been lost to grasslands. And so potentially as part of that 800, we want to reverse that. So let's go even further and restore some as well. So we'll take this to -100. And another one of the targets that Ghana has is to rehabilitate and restore 5,000 kilometers squared of degraded forest, but also croplands. And in here, we have the option to change some of the conversion of croplands to grasslands by reducing this figure here. So we'll do that as well. And we'll save, and this will update the graphs and also in time the summary table and summaries here. So we don't currently have that working, but this is the vision for the tool. And therefore, as you create the scenario, you can work towards reducing the degraded percentage of land at the subnational level and seeing the effects on various trade-offs that are important to you. The other thing I'd like to say is that we have the ability to create multiple scenarios. So from here, we can come down and create a second scenario based upon our first scenario. And we can go through the same process from here, making adjustments to that scenario and seeing the effects on the trade-offs and prioritizing what is important during the land flattening phase. I'd now like to hand over to Luis to talk a bit more about some of these trade-offs and how we think we can incorporate more complex scenarios adjustments into the tool.
Thank you, Simon. So in the near future, additionally to the customized planning of land conversion that Simon just explained, the user will be able to turn on and off the implementation of sustainable land management practices. These practices will then influence the productivity of the land and all the other variables that you see on the trade-offs table below, and including, of course, then the overall 15.3 indicator for the region. For example, we are studying the application of no-till practices in agriculture, as this has been widely supported to improve soil organic carbon in the soil, which in turn drives up agricultural yields. What we did so far, leveraging on case study peer-reviewed literature, we have identified the relative gains of soil organic carbon associated with no-till practices. Second, we also evaluated the relative gains in yields of maize and wheat for now, due to higher concentrations of soil organic carbon. This also was based on our work for the IUCN report. And three, we extracted also the per hectare costs, investment costs necessary to implement the no-till practices from the WOCAT database. It's only now a small step until this information can be condensed in the tool and be used to update the tool, to update the trade-offs table once the user activates or deactivates this management option.
1.5 minutes left.
The user can already access the current state of agricultural production and yields for major crops using FAO national data, as you see in the tool, and also indications of other variables like the avoided social costs of carbon. Yeah, and that's all for me for now.
Thank you, Luis. So, so we're running short on time. I'd like to take you through the project plan. And in terms of timelines for development, so what we have here is a working prototype that we're taking you through today. We're getting lots of great feedback from various users. And as you've heard from some of the interviews played out during this call, one of the key improvements we'd like to make is to allow users to select at which region this analysis occurs. So currently it's at the subnational level, but taking it down into smaller communes and various other levels. In terms of the overall timeline for development, we have a key question moving forwards as to whether or not to keep the tool within the Earth Engine apps tool itself, or to take it to a custom front end. And there are various pros and cons to each method, but we foresee the ability to deliver on all that we've discussed in terms of improvements in the next 6 months to at the highest 9 months if we were to go with the custom front end there.
Perfect. And with that, we are within 20 minutes. We have therefore finished our presentation, but if the viewer is interested, they can also listen to Steve Brescia, who is the executive director of Groundswell International, who will also be using our tool. So we'll just put him on, but you feel free to keep it or not keep it as part of the presentation.
My name is Steve Bresch. I'm the Executive Director of Groundswell International, and we are a network of NGOs working in 10 countries in West Africa, South Asia, and Latin America, and the Caribbean, promoting farmer-led agroecology and regeneration of communities and landscapes. So for us, I think this tool can be extremely important and valuable. We work with local NGO partners in each country, and then they work with farmers, community organizations, farmer organizations, and farmers themselves on their farms. And we think, like any tool, it's a question of what is the purpose of the tool and who has the power to use the tool. And in our work, we're really trying to shift power into the hands of farmers who we really believe are the key agents of change for regenerating landscapes, improving agricultural production, improving their lives and communities. And we call that agroecology, farmers working with nature to innovate and scale solutions and try to prevent negative trends. And farmers do that based on their own logic of what is cost beneficial to them. They of course have a deep understanding of that and what is improving their lives, and a deep understanding of the context they live in terms of the economic and political context, the security, the climate context, cultural context, et cetera. So farmers have to be the key agents of change at scaling out these solutions. And a tool like this, I think, can be really helpful at multiple levels for farmers to better understand how, in comparison to other communities that are perhaps using other practices, which practices are most effective. For our local NGO partners, so that's at the farm level and the between communities, and then for our local NGO partners to see again what is most effective and how they can bring these lessons on what is working to decision makers and policymakers to create the right kind of enabling and policy support environment. And then for Groundswell as a global network working across 10 countries, similarly, how we can demonstrate the trends and the power of agroecology to help to regenerate landscapes and improve lives and improve farming production. So we're still learning about how to use the tool and getting to know it, but see great potential in terms of analyzing issues like productivity and soil organic carbon sequestration and land cover, et cetera, drought risk. And so these are all extremely valuable information that if we can put in the hands of farmers and farmers organizations and local NGO partners, this can really help to improve our programs and demonstrate to others the value of this work and how it can best be scaled. So I think one element that will remain important is the human side of having people like those from Altus Impact to continue to work with our local NGO partners and farmers groups to best understand how this tool can be used, how they can most benefit from it, and how they can adapt it to their needs. So there's always a part of training and dialogue and adaptation at that level that remains important. So we are very excited to begin to use this tool and apply it in different ways. Thank you.